evening. My name is Glenn Parker. I speak to you this evening as a past participant in multiple Brea citizen engagement programs and as a past member of this council. Therefore, my comments are based upon my first-hand knowledge. Bev reminded us that Brea has a history of citizen involvement. Many times over the years, we've asked our residents what's important to them, and we've utilized those values that they shared with us to guide our future decisions. Some of the more recent projects that have provided us with information that help us evaluate this project are the Brea Project, the Downtown Charette, the Brea Project, the Downtown Charette, Future Brea, and Future Brea Revisiting the Vision. During the Brea Project, citizens identified three top community-wide concerns. Those were development and redevelopment, traffic, and city maintenance. And something interesting that was a common thread through all of these that didn't always end up in the top three as the group's main focus of what they were talking about, but they always came back and said, what about the hills? What about the canyons? Even when we talked about the Downtown Charette, we were trying to focus on what did they want to do in the downtown with the opportunities that were there. And they kept coming back and saying, well, yeah, that's nice, but by the way, you know, it's really nice when we look up and we see these undeveloped hills. That always came back to being a very, very important value for them. So they defined during these projects the following community values for evaluating hillside development. Number one, protect natural assets in the canyons and in the hillsides, including ridgelines, streams, and sensitive wildlife. Number two, preserve as much open space as possible. If there is development, that it be compact, and that rather than being business as usual, it be something special. Now, following these programs, the council and staff did everything we could to incorporate those values into planning documents and the actions that we took to provide the residents of this community with a enjoyable and safe community to live in. During the past 2 decades, Brea has taken many singular and joint policy steps to protect the hills, including creation of the Wildlife Corridor Conservation Authority, the California State Joint Powers Authority, creation of the Hillside Open Space Education Coalition, approval of the Hillside Management Ordinance, which was intended to apply to all hillside development as outlined in Bev's in my letter to you, support for Measure M and the environmental mitigation program that goes with it, support for the Southern California Association of Governments and the Sustainable Community Strategies. And even if you go and you look at your council top goals for 2013 to 14, there are values in those that specifically reflect upon this project. Number one, increasing the citizen sense of ownership of Brea to maintain trust between local government and constituents and to build a quality of life pleasing and safe for all residents. Two, providing high-quality public safety services to ensure a safe and secure environment. Protecting open space and determining the future of Brea's sphere of influence. So the community has given us the criteria by which to evaluate projects of this type. But there's another issue that comes up. Many people claim that this decision is all about property rights, that the property owner can do whatever they want with their property. They have a right to. Well, that's not exactly the case. If that were the case, we wouldn't have building codes. We wouldn't have a California Government Code state-mandated planning commission. We wouldn't have the environmental review process known as CEQA, which is part of why we're here this evening. We wouldn't have general plans and all the other planning tools that we use that all incorporate made sure that we can't do just whatever we want with our property. They tell us that we must consider the impacts upon our neighbors and the community at large. So when you consider the statements of overriding consideration, you must respect the values defined by our residents and supported by past council policies and actions to do what's in the best long-term interest of our community. So let's take a look at this project and how it rates against some of these values. Number one, does it preserve a ridgeline? No, it destroys a ridgeline. Number two, it causes the loss of open space and habitat. It increases traffic. And this is just sort of a personal comment. I've sat in your chair and looked at a number of projects, and even with 8 years in the council, I got to tell you, I simply can't provide a rational, logical explanation to a resident when they ask me, how can you approve a project that's going to add traffic to an intersection that's already rated F? I know there are a lot of legal reasons why you do that, but I can't find any logical, rational one. Attorneys aren't necessarily logical or rational. Not safe and secure. We've already seen the evidence. History has shown that this site is in harm's way, with an above-average risk of loss due to fire, landslide, and earthquake, even with the increased property protection provided by the applicant fire and building codes. Why would you unnecessarily allow families to be exposed to these life-threatening hazards? Finally, is this project something special? I mean, really? Let's take a look at that. There's no sensitivity to the surrounding environment. There's no LEED energy-efficient design. There's no use of solar or wind energy incorporated into the project. There's nothing but more dependency on automobiles. There's no recycled water infrastructure or other water conservation measures planned. There are no community facilities in the project that would give the residents a gathering place to build a neighborhood identity in an isolated area. In fact, there isn't even a place to play a pickup game of basketball. This project is a project conceived in the last century, and it shows. It's old planning. This project is business as usual. It's a step backwards, not forward, and it's not who we are trying to be in the city of Brea. And finally, looking at one of your goals, public trust. How can the citizens trust the process if the values they expressed when we asked them to take their personal time and evaluate all the potential values that could be used to judge the planning and the future for our city? How can we ignore those? If you ignore those and dismiss them without substantial, supportable justification, it's basically a slap in the face for all those residents that took their time to share their values. We have shown that such justification does not exist to accept the unprecedented 3 statements of overriding concern and approve this project. Approval would be a significant breach of public's trust. We urge you to say yes to the appeal and no to Madrona because you asked for our values and we told you what is important to our community. Thank you.